This section, I think, is really crucial in terms of the penalty for the breach of this legislation. So at the moment, the proposal is for a Class C fine, €2,500. And that's just completely inadequate. I mean, the kind of risk-reward for employers here, the risk isn't very high and the reward can be very high. I mean, it was reported that in the Ivy restaurant, they were taking in €3,000 a day in tips, electronic tips, that they were taking as the employer. And the maximum that we're saying, that the government is saying, that employers who continue to engage in that practice against the law can face is a fine of €2,500. It's just completely inadequate. It's a very soft touch, light-handed approach to employers for what is theft, robbery, workers' money. Shouldn't be treated as a light, small kind of matter. It's a big deal. It's the same thing as you go into someone's house and you rob their money. It's theft, and it should be treated as such. With our proposals, or my proposals, is for a Class A fine, a maximum of 12 months imprisonment, or both, i.e. treating it with the seriousness that it deserves.
I just would say again, I hear what people are saying in relation to this being theft and this being a rob money. I agree with that assessment, by the way. If money is intended for somebody and somebody else takes it, like that is larceny in my view. And I don't know the answer to my own question, but I'd actually be curious to know whether any complaints have been taken to the Gardaí, or whether there have been any investigations under larceny provisions and what the case law is around that. I don't know if there has been, but I would be curious to know. But what we're dealing with, of course, here is employment law. And with respect to this legislation, the amendment would change the penalties for breaches from a fine of up to €2,500 to a fine of up to €5,000. This will be out of line and inconsistent with penalties included in the Payments of Wages Act 1991, which this Act amend. That Act provides for fines up to €1,000. The WRC can also impose fixed penalty notices of up to €1,500. If these amendments were accepted, then breaches of this bill would have the most serious consequence of any offence under the Payment of Wages Act, and that doesn't seem proportionate. Amendments 17, 18 and 19 and 22 propose the introduction of prison sentences for breaches of the Act. By way of an example, an employer who fails to give an employee statement of their tips and gratuities and the total tips and gratuities received will be liable for up to 12 months imprisonment. Just to clarify that, even if somebody got all their tips, every single euro, every single cent, if the employer didn't for some reason give them the paperwork, they could go to prison for 12 months. And to me that seems somewhat draconian, and it certainly wouldn't protect the employers if their employer had to cease trading because they were sent to prison, having paid every cent of the wages, every cent of the tip, but not provided the right sheet of paper.
This amendment being pressed. The Choctair Haven and Tarshkin Oberdish Tall. And again a Neil. Stolen Gull Butcher and Kesht. Ever Oakdeg Deputy O'Reilly already discussed with 17. Is this amendment being pressed? The Choctair Haven and Tarshkin Oberdish Tall. In again a Neil. Tom Butcher and Kesht. 19. Deputy Murphy. Is this amendment being pressed? Yes. The deputies in favour of the question, Tall. The deputies against, Neil. I believe the question is defeated. 20. Deputy Murphy. Withdrawn. 21. Deputy O'Reilly. Already discussed with 20. How stands this amendment? Withdrawn. 22. Already discussed with 17. How stands this? There, Deputy Murphy. Pressed in the Choctair Haven and Tarshkin Oberdish Tall. In the Gwynna Neil. Is Dolan Will Butcher and Gesht. Question is lost. 23. Deputy O'Reilly. Withdrawn. 24. Deputy Murphy. Withdrawn. 25. Deputy Murphy. 25 to 27 inclusive are related and will be taken together. Just very quickly, if you would move 25.
So move. These are this is the last substantial section of amendments. So just very quickly, is the key amendment, I think, is Amendment 26 actually, which is to say that it shouldn't be enough for at least one notice to exist. which is what the Act currently refers to in terms of providing what the policy is, but that there should be as many as are required to be clearly visible to customers. So you shouldn't just be able to put it on the website, it should be on menus, it should be publicly displayed so that it's very clear for those who are going into an establishment what the tips policy is.